Hey everyone, it's your girl Maddie here, aka Beaver Moss, and today I am joined by Stefano of Bedsore, whose new record, Dreaming the Strife for Love, is coming out November 29th off a 20-buck spin. Now, Stefano, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. I remember your debut record, Hypnagogic Hallucinations, came out 2020 and it received a good amount of attention. At the time, made a couple end of year list. Just following that up with this sophomore release, is there kind of is there a stress that you got to think we got to match the reception of the last one, or we can't fall into that second album slump? Are you thinking about that at all with this release? Does that worry you at all?
Yeah, I actually think there's a sort of big difference between Dreaming the Strife for Love, the new album, and Hypnagogic Hallucinations. It's more like we try to explore a different kind of horror dimension
Yeah,
in the sense of we had sort of first impact with Hypnagogic Hallucination of the kind of horror you try to feel in nightmare. So it's something like very disturbing and in a way very death metal. Okay.
yeah,
The difference between this album and Dream the Strive for Love is that the horror you can find in Dream the Strive for Love is more like when you see something really majestic and you actually can find a way to comprehend what you are seeing. So
yeah.
it's a different kind of situation that drags to horror anyway. So that's probably the main difference between the two albums. Yeah, definitely.
Sure. And now with this new record, your death metal is very there, but it seems like you are really diving into that progressive rock side that's always been a part of your band, but it's really kind of expanding here. I mean, I hear King Crimson, I hear Yes, I hear I'm on Duel. Why is that movement of, progressive rock, specifically from the 70s, so interesting to you?
Yeah, actually, as you said, you can hear some different kind of prog rock styles. Something more British, something more American style of
Yeah.
prog rock, but definitely it's more like a sort of fil rouge with our past traditions in Italy about prog rock.
Sure.
So, for example, I don't know if you ever heard about PFM, but of course you do, and Le Orme or Semiramis that are maybe they are little bands, but they had a great impact here in Italy. So, to answer to you, the point is that we try to take this heritage and try to do a step forward for what concern our sound. So it's more like having a sort of continuation of what was the heritage here in Italy. But of course, we are great fans of prog rocks indeed in every forms. So
Yeah.
our fathers did listen to that stuff, and we basically grew up with everything about that. So yeah, I think it's more like having a sort of continuation, as I was saying, a sort of continuation of the heritage here in Italy about
Yeah.
prog rock, and trying to find a way to express ourselves in this kind of dimension. So taking inspiration from the past, but trying to do something new.
Yeah.
That's why you can find all the both the inspiration inside the Dream the Step Forward.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering, when you're putting this record together, do you have a specific blueprint or strategy for how much you want to incorporate both sides of this? Do you think, okay, we have some of the proggy aspects, but we also have the death metal? Do you try to go in when you make a track, half death metal, half progressive? Is there kind of like a mindset there, or is it just kind of like what happens, happens?
Yeah, it's not about a blueprint actually,
Okay.
because mm, there's not a sort of musical blueprint because the album is inspired by a book from the from the past, a sort of medieval book. It's
Yeah.
called Ipnerotomachia Polifili. It's difficult to
Uh-huh.
pronunciate even for me that I'm Italian, but yes. Yeah, I was saying it's just, there wasn't a blueprint musically speaking, but of course he has a very important narrative dimension. So the point was that fine to represent what happened in the book. That is a sort of symbolic book with a lot of illustrations and allegories. So
Yeah.
in a way, was easy to represent this kind of things in music, because music, of course, is not something that is precise when
Of
you
course.
try to represent things. So it's from a side was okay and was fine to find a way to represent this stuff with music. On the other end, was pretty difficult to explore and to represent the exact structures of the book. So it was like a big challenge. We tried to do that by layering, in a way, the different kind of components, both metal and progressive, as I was saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the point basically. There's no a blueprint, but it was a sort of continuous thinking about how things will was in developing in the book and trying to represent that. But of course, not just copying what was happening in the book, but trying to do something personal and represent even a sort of inner conscious.
Yeah. Now, in the record, you incorporate a lot of instrumentation that doesn't typically scream death metal. I mean, you got classical guitar, you got mellotron, you got organ, you got flutes. How do you make all of these seemingly alien to each other layers work? Because most people don't think of putting like blast beats and electric guitars with a saxophone, but you do. How do you like when you're mixing this, how does this gonna work together, you know?
Yeah, as I was saying, it was a pretty good challenge,
Yeah,
especially if you consider I am a composer and
sure.
Jacobo, the other guy behind Bedsore, and it's a sound engineer. So we had a double side of troubleshooting in terms of composition and audio result. So yeah, definitely it wasn't easy, but yeah, it's difficult to know exactly how we do that. We actually ask
Yeah,
us ourselves how we do that. But yes,
yeah,
the point is that, as I was saying, we tried to follow the stream of consciousness, so to say, and find a way to represent in the best way what we were thinking about regarding the what happened in the book. But yeah, the point was that basically not to alternate too much. The little tip I can give you maybe
yeah.
it's that we didn't try to alternate the metal riff with a prog rock interlude, for example, but try to mix them in the same moment, find the right balance between the two parts and creating something really personal, actually. So it was the main aim.
Sure. Now you say
Yeah,
you're a composer. Now I also I'm a big fan of classical music. And I think a lot of metalheads also are.
yeah,
Why do you
definitely.
why do you think that like there's such a an overlap between people who listen to classical and people that listen to metal? Like, why do you think those two genres kind of appeal to the same person?
Yeah, I think it's there. There's much metal in classical music, actually.
Yeah,
If you listen to something like stuff like first Stravinsky,
of course.
the ballet periods, or for example Holst, the probably is really famous. Oh, I don't remember the name of the composition. The planets, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, you can find in a way this kind of dimension of aggressive and uh, yeah, it's it can be tricky to think there is no metal in classical music, but it is. And metal is not about using a guitar, an electric guitar, on a loud amp. It's more like having the good mood to represent something that is inside of us and is aggressive in that moment. So I think there is a sort of connection between these two things. And people who like metal, of course, can appreciate even classical music. Of course, it depends. It depends on the kind of classical music.
Yeah.
Of course, we have Debussy or Ravel that actually aren't so much metal, in my opinion. But yeah, I think there is a bridge between the two things. Even because there wasn't metal in the 18th centuries, for example, but
Yeah.
there was anyway aggressive mood or something similar. So yeah, I think
I
there's
think
sort of
I
bridge.
think I think both classical and metal play versus other forms of music. I think play a lot with texture and dynamics and add a level of
Yeah,
intensity that I don't think other music really is designed to express.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, you're right. Yeah,
Now Italy has a number of death metal bands, but you are specifically based in Rome. And I'm wondering,
yeah.
is there much of a death metal or even just a metal in general scene in Rome or in the surrounding towns and cities?
Yeah, not too much in Rome, maybe. Of course,
Yeah,
we have that metal band in Rome, but it's more developed in the north part of Italy. So,
sure.
for example, we have a very good scene in the Milan area or
Wow.
in the Venice area.
Mhm.
For example, I can name The Void of Thought or Ad Nauseam, Fuoco Fatuo, or something like
Oh yeah,
very different kind of metals, of course, and not the same. But yeah, in Rome, we also have maybe there's more attention for what concern other kind of genre, more like post-rock, sludge stuff, and
yeah.
hardcore. Yeah, maybe hardcore is the one most developed here,
There's a lot of
and the
hardcore in
one
Italy.
most.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, we also have a very good scene in the northern part. Of course, it's not metal is not so much homogeneous in the whole country,
Sure. Sure.
so to say. So we have particular areas where it's very developed and followed by people.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar, how familiar you are with Cosmic Putrefaction, but they're an Italian death metal band from Milan that put out a record earlier this year that I absolutely adore. Um,
Okay.
yeah. Earlier this month, you put out this animated video for Scars of Light. Can you tell
Yeah.
me the story of how that video got made? Who's kind of the like primary artist there?
Yeah, the story behind the Scars of Light actually is not a real story. There's not a sort of, how can I say, there's not a script. So
Yeah.
it's just a sort of layered images that goes and of course are part of the general imaginary of the book and the album, of
Yeah.
course. So you can find winged doors or double-faced men that
Yeah.
are a sort of symbols that are inside the book. So it's more like having a first impact um, with our first inspiration,
Yeah.
basically. So, but we were actually very proud of the work that Costin made
Yeah.
for the video. So let me thank you him again for it.
And why did you choose that track in particular for like the first teaser of the album?
Yeah, it was probably the first track we composed, and
Sure.
fun fact, we even used to play the first intros something like 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh
Actually,
wow.
since then, actually, we were playing that part in every gig. But yeah, it was a sort of leitmotif for the band. not in particular for the album, but yeah, we used to play that track even in live gigs before the releasing of Dreaming the Strike for Love. But what was the question? I forgot. Sorry.
Uh, yeah, well, why did you choose that track in particular as like the first?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe it's more like a sort of melting pot of all the influences together, and it's a
sure.
not so long track. It's something like 6 minutes, so you can find the metal parts, but of course even the prog rock atmospheres, and it's more like direct in a way, respect to the rest of the tracks,
Yeah,
and it has a sort of yeah, it's very strange to say, but he has a sort of pop structure. Of course, it's not pop in the actual sense of it, but
right.
he has a sort of reprise and a sort of um, main parts that
Yeah.
came over. Yeah,
Um, I am curious, and I kind of have to ask about the timing of this release. I know a lot of like when the album is released is probably up to 20 bucks spin, but you're putting this out November 29th.
yeah,
At this point, a lot of publications, a lot of websites may already be kind of finishing up their album of the year list. And I'm kind of maybe are not kind of paying attention to records as much anymore, sadly. Um, and another prominent progressive death metal band, Opeth, just put out an album that a lot of metalheads are probably still digesting. Do you
yeah.
care about that at all? Are you thinking about all when should we release this album to get the most response to it? Are you strategizing that at all? Because I mean, does any of the things that I mentioned like concern you at all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely understand your point, and
Yeah.
what I can say about that I really, me and the guys of the band really trust Dave from 20 Backspin, and we
Yeah.
decided together to put out the album in that period for different strategies that are more about the label than about the band, of course. And
Right.
I know about the let's say the overdubbing, the no, not the overdubbing, sorry, the overlap of the Opeth
Yeah.
release, and of course not just the Opeth release, even Oranzi Pazuzu, if I don't get wrong,
Oh
release an
yeah,
album
yeah.
in the same time frame. But yeah, the point is that I think you can have a sort of how can I say, good effect regarding the fact that many people that are into prog death metal will
Yeah.
listen to Opeth, and then you can find in the same days a sort of growing up of the listens about prog death metal, and
Yeah.
then probably putting out your stuff in that same time frame could
Oh
be
yeah.
a sort of good effort for you. So I think they've considered that kind of effect, and then decided to release that together with us in November.
Oh yeah. Someone's be like listening, oh yeah, Oranzi Pazuzu, Opeth. I
Yeah,
like these two things, and now I'm like kind of hungry for that specific sound. What else is coming out? And they'll see Bedsore, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. By
uh
the way, great album about. I don't know if you heard about all the new album of Ranzi Zuzu, but it was something really great to me.
incredible. No, I love that black metal. At least I know a number of black metal bands are starting to play with like these electronic sounds. Like there's a lot of trip hop and industrial in that record, and
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
incredible. I think it works really well.
yeah, definitely.
Um, so my viewers are gonna definitely be familiar with like the death metal canon, I'm assuming. And I would bet many of my audience also listen to a lot of progressive music. I know I do. I mean, I got the Rush up there, but
Oh yeah.
may maybe for those that don't, can you suggest a handful of what you would consider essential prog records for them to check out?
It's a very difficult question. Trying to. press everything inside of a question. But yes, for what concern prog rock stuff, I think you can start classic, from classic British prog rock. So definitely Genesis, Selling England by the Pound, or Foxtrot, and going to uh, King Crimson, definitely, or Yes. But if you wanna say something like more Italian oriented, I can suggest, as I was saying before, the PFM, that is the AKA for Premiata Forneria Marconi, and definitely Goblin, that is a sort of
Goblin's incredible, yeah.
cult band, even for what concerned the horror kind of dimension, and similar for
Yeah.
for what concerned the cult horror cinema too. Yeah, definitely. Semiramis, there is a little gem, so to say, because it's not so. Some people doesn't heard about Semiramis, but it's a sort of very tough band. And by the way, they released a new album this year, and it was
Yeah.
incredible. It's called La fine non esiste. That it's
Yeah.
something like translation for "and doesn't exist." Yeah, it was incredible. But yeah, coming back to the question, I can suggest definitely Balletto di Bronzo. That is an Italian band, of course, more like it's a progressive style of. It's a sort of a progressive band, but it's more influenced by metal without having metal inside. So it's
Sure.
more like having this kind of disturbing harmonies that grew up, and you say, "What is fucking happening here?" But it's not metal. So coming back to the previous questions you made, there is metal even where in albums where there's no metal.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and yeah, just to I think I covered everything about prog rock in Italy, but um, I'm continuing to to thinking about that, and if something came up later, I will add it.
Now, you keep mentioning, you keep talking about the Italian, progressive scene and Italian music. And I don't know how much you as a band tour outside of Italy, but I'm
Yeah, a bit.
curious. I'm curious. What is the difference between like an Italian audience for your music versus outside in other parts of Europe or maybe the States or how is the reception different?
Um, okay, we have a very good um, feedback from what concern Europe.
Yeah.
We had two different tours in 2022 with Creeped Shift. It's a band under Metal Blade Records, if I don't get wrong. And yeah, we had a very good feedback in Europe, and especially in Germany,
Sure.
definitely in Germany. And Denmark, we even played at Chilltown That Fest. So yeah, wasn't particularly different for what concerned the audience here in Italy.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's more like a sort of musical proposal that work very well for what concern extra Italy countries.
Yeah.
It was a sort of surprise actually because say okay, Italian language prog rock style in Italian way of doing that, but yeah, it works even in other countries definitely. More or less, Germany and Denmark were very well attended, even the shows, and yeah, in America, of course, we have in US in particular, we have a very good fan base thanks to 20 Backspin. So I think it's more or less covered even in different countries.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's all I have for you to ask. I do before I want to let you go. We'll give the floor to you. Just kind of tell people where they can find your music, your merch, your socials, all of that. Any kind of plugs you have. So, you know, well, there you go.
Yeah, okay. We can definitely find us in different stores, and but probably the main it's the 20 bucks spin store, and you can follow us on Instagram, just typing Bedsore there. And yeah, on Facebook, something like we try to upgrade the social media pages every time we add something new, so you
Yeah.
can definitely follow us there. You can find even our music on Spotify, just typing Bedsore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sort of strange name for a band. Actually, we didn't talk about that, but there is a reason behind.
Awesome. Well, Stefano, thank you so much for your time. It was a great conversation. For everyone watching at home, look out for the new Bedsore album, Dreaming the Strife for Love, coming out this Friday off a 20-buck spin. As always, thank you to my patrons. You keep the show running. Keep it metal. My name is Maddie, aka Beaver Mosh, and I'm out of here. Bye.